बार दीगर नारे सलावात सल्ले अला मोहम्मद व बर हबीब खुदा खत्मुल अंबिया नारे सलावात अल्लाहुम्मा सल्ले अला मोहम्मद व आले मोहम्मद. For Quran recitation, I invite Brother Amin Jafri. Please welcome him with salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allah. نار الصلوات
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والصافات صفا فالزاجرات زجرا فالطاليات ذكرا إن إلهكم لواحد رب السماوات والأرض وما بينهما ورب المشارق إنا زينا السماء الدنيا بزينة الكواكب وحفظا من كل شيطان مارد لا يسمعون إلا الملائكة الأعلى ويقذفون من كل جانب دهورا ولهم عذاب واصب إلا من خطف الخطفة فأتبعه شهاب ثاقب فاستفتهم أهم أشد خلقا أم من خلقنا إنا خلقناهم من طين لذب بل عجبت ويسخرون وإذا ذكروا لا يذكرون وإذا رأوا آية يستسخرون وقالوا إن هذا إلا سحر مبين. صلوات. أإذا متنا وكنا ترابا وإذا من أئنا لمبعوثون صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.
जज़ाकल्लाह ब्रदर अमीन. सलाम के लिए मैं दरख्वास्त करता हूँ जनाब इकबाल गांजी साहब से कि वो आएँ और मौला की बारगाह में अपना कलाम पेश करें. बर मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद सलावत.
4 مصرے عابد بیمار کربلا کے صدقے میں پیش خدمت ہے۔ ستم کو صبر کا کلمہ پڑھانے آیا ہے، ستم کو صبر کا کلمہ پڑھانے آیا ہے، علی کے خون کا جوہر دکھانے آیا ہے۔ پہن کر ہتھ کڑی بیڑی حسین کا بیمار، پہن کر ہتھ کڑی و بیڑی حسین کا بیمار، امیر شام کو قیدی بنانے آیا ہے۔ صلوات۔ پیش خدمت سید شبیہ احمد انیس کا کلام بر محمد و آل محمد صلوات۔ 40 برس روتے نہ کیوں عابد بیمار، 40 برس روتے نہ کیوں عابد مضطر، تا عمر سمایا رہا آنکھوں میں وہ منظر، 40 برس روتے نہ کیوں عابد مضطر، دیکھا تھا انہی آنکھوں سے گھر اپنا اجڑتا، دیکھا تھا انہی آنکھوں سے گھر اپنا اجڑتا، بے گور و کفن لاش شہیدوں کے زمیں پر، 40 برس روتے نہ کیوں عابد مضطر، پھرتا ہی رہا آنکھوں میں بھائی کا وہ لاشا، پھرتا ہی رہا آنکھوں میں بھائی کا وہ لاشا، برچھی تھی کلیجے میں انی سینے کے باہر، 40 برس روتے نہ کیوں عابد مضطر، دعوت کوئی دیتا تو یہ فرماتے تھے سجاد، دعوت کوئی دیتا تو یہ فرماتے تھے سجاد، گر مجھ کو بلانا ہے تو مجلس تو بپا کر، 40 برس روتے نہ کیوں عابد مضطر، کس مرد میں ہے حوصلہ جو عابد بیمار، کس مرد میں ہے حوصلہ جو عابد بیمار، ماں بہن کو جو دیکھ لے بلوے میں کھلے سر، 40 برس روتے نہ کیوں عابد بیمار، 6 ماہ کہاں اور کہاں یہ تیر سے پہلو، 6 ماہ کہاں اور کہاں یہ تیر سے پہلو، بے چین کیے رہتا تھا حال اصغر، 40 برس روتے نہ کیوں عابد مضطر. یہ پوچھتے تھے آتا تھا کوفے سے جو ملنے، یہ پوچھتے تھے آتا تھا کوفے سے جو ملنے، پھر نار ہوا یا نہ ہوا قاتل اصغر. 40 برس روتے نہ کیوں عابد مضطر. کیا گزری دل سید سجاد پہ اس دم، کیا گزری دل سید سجاد پہ اس دم، جب لوٹا گیا بیویوں کا مکنا و چادر. 40 برس روتے نہ کیوں عابد مضطر. غش کھاتے تھے پڑھتے ہی نظر کوئی ذبیحہ، غش کھاتے تھے پڑھتے ہی نظر کوئی ذبیحہ. نظروں میں سما جاتا تھا عاشور کا منظر. 40 برس روتے نہ کیوں عابد مضطر. دیکھے تھے جو عاشور کو اٹھتے ہوئے شعلے، دیکھتے تھے جو عاشور کو اٹھتے ہوئے شعلے، تا عمر دھواں اٹھتا رہا آہوں میں ڈھل کر. 40 برس روتے نہ کیوں عابد مضطر. سید سجاد یا سید سجاد، گزرے تھے کہاں رنج بہت پوچھا جو کسی نے، گزرے تھے کہاں رنج بہت پوچھا جو کسی نے. آشام ہی آشام کہا کہنا سر کو جھکا کر، آشام ہی آشام کہا سر کو جھکا کر. 40 برس روتے نہ کیوں عابد مضطر. ہر ایک نفس گریا تھا یا طاعت معبود، ہر ایک نفس گریا تھا طاعت معبود. ایک لمحہ بھی راحت نہ انیس آئی میسر. 40 برس روتے نہ کیوں عابد مضطر. تا عمر سمایا رہا آنکھوں میں وہ منظر. 40 برس روتے نہ کیوں عابد مضطر. صلوات.
صلی علی محمد و آل محمد.
میں درخواست کرتا ہوں جناب سید احتشام حیدر نقوی صاحب سے کہ وہ آئیں اور مولا کی بارگاہ میں سو سلام مرثیہ پیش کریں. بر محمد و آل محمد صلوات. ایک اور صلوات علی محمد و آل محمد.
بارہ دیگر صلوات.
اللہم صلی علی محمد و آل محمد. بر حبیب خدا ختم الانبیاء نعرہ صلوات.
ایک مرتبہ اور صلوات پیش.
اللہم صلی علی محمد و آل محمد.
وقت ڈوبا ہوا سجاد کی تقدیر میں ہے پاؤں عابد کا
چار مصرے اور آپ کے سامنے.
تصویر حسینی ابن علی ہے سجاد، تصویر حسین ابن علی ہے سجاد، من جملہ آیات جلی ہیں سجاد، اور تینت میں عبادت کا شغف جس کو ملا، وہ سجدہ گزارے ازلی ہے سجاد، تصویر حسین ابن محمد وآل محمد صلوات
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
وادی شام سے ہو کر جو ہوا آتی ہے، وادی شام سے ہو کر جو ہوا آتی ہے، کسی معصوم کے رونے کی صدا آتی ہے، کیا یتیمہ کوئی روتی ہے پدر کے غم میں، قید خانے سے جو آواز بکاتی ہے، وادی شام سے ہو کر جو ہوا آتی ہے، سرے شبیر سے سجاد نے یہ رو کے کہا، ارے مجھ کو زینب کے کھلے سر سے حیا آتی ہے، مجھ کو زینب کے کھلے سر سے حیا آتی ہے، اور پائے سجاد کی لپٹی ہوئی زنجیروں سے آج بھی گریہ و ماتم کی صدا آتی ہے، آج بھی گریہ و ماتم کی صدا آج بھی شام کے زندان کی تاریکی سے، ارے میرے بابا کی صدا، میرے بابا فرش عزادی ہے، ایک ماں ہے جو سر فرش عزادی ہے، ایک ماں ہے جو سر فرش خون عباس دلاور کا اثر ہے یہ سہیل، خاک مقتل سے جو خوشبو یہ وفا آتی ہے، خاک مقتل سے جو خوشبو وفا وادی شام سے۔ سورہ فاتحہ۔ وقت کا مجھے اندازہ ہے، چند بند مولانا کو انشاءاللہ 9:30 بجے۔ یہ آج کی مجلس جو شب چہلم کی ہے، مجھے یاد ہے کہ جناب ڈاکٹر عابد جعفری صاحب بہت عرصے سے محفل شیخ فرانس خیال میں کرتے تھے، اور یہ مجھے سعادت تھی کہ میں وہاں مرثیہ پڑھتا تھا۔ بہرحال اسیر بلا میں جو سید سجاد ہوئے، اسیر بلا میں جو سید سجاد، ارے یتیم و بے کس و بے آشنا پہ تھی بیدار، یتیم و بے کس و بے آشنا پہ تھی بیدار، نظر نہ آتا تھا ایک شخص بھی پائے امداد، نگاہ یاد سے تکتے تھے چار سو ہر بار، نگاہ یاد سے تکتے تھے چار سو ہر، جفا گروں نے جفا بے شمار کی ہے نہ قدر سید علی وقار کی ہے نہ قدر سید علی وقار کی ہے، اور پدر کے آگے ہیں سجاد تھے بہت بھی، پڑے تھے بستر غم پر بحالت نہ ترس نہ کھاتا تھا لاغر پہ کوئی ظلم جہاں سے اڑ گئے تھے سارے یاورو، جہاں سے اڑ گئے تھے سارے یاورو، کریں جفا پہ جفا کس طرح نہ بانی شر، ارے حسین مر گئے ہیں کو یہ اب نہیں سر پر، حسین مر گئے ہیں کوئی اب نہیں سر پر، چراغ بجھ گیا زہرا کا آ گئی تباہ ہو گوا شبیر کی لٹی، نواسیوں پہ نبی کے یہ ہوتی ہے بدعت برائے نام بھی امت تو کچھ نہ تھی برائے نام بھی امت تو کچھ نہ تھی ہوا نہ خود دل سجاد ایک دم کے لیے ارے پدر کو روتے ہوئے اٹھ گئے زمانے پدر کو روتے ہوئے اٹھ گئے زمان تڑپ رہے ہیں جو بستر پہ عابدے بھی نہ کوئی حامی تھا باقی نہ یاورو زہر ہائے جگر کے بھی ہو گیا تھا پکارتے تھے پدر ہو کہاں ہے میں تم پہ نسبت پکارتے تھے پدر ہو کہاں میں تم صدائے حضرت شبیر کان میں آئے میں ہوں سرانے کھڑا ہے پدر کے شہدا میں ہوں سرانے کھڑا ہے پدر کے شہدا اٹھا کے سختیاں ہے گزرتے ہو بیٹا نشاں گلے میں ابھی تک ہے توق و بیڑی مجھے ہے یادو وہ کانٹوں پہ راستہ چلنا تمام کنبہ تھا کھلے سر تھا بلوے میں میرا تمام کنبہ کھلے سر تھا بلوے میں ارے میرے غریب میں صدقے تیری غریبی کے اے غضب کلیجے کے او ٹکڑے ہے غضب کلیجے کے ہو گئے ٹکڑے جہاں سے اٹھ گیا والی غریبوں کا پیٹو اٹھائی سختیاں کیا شام میں ذرا اسیر ہونا شہ پاک کا خیال کرو حرم تھے سامنے بے پردہ کچھ خیال کرو حرم تھے سامنے بے پردہ کچھ خیال کرو ارے زمین پہ کھا کے جو غش آہ کرتے تھے لاچا لگاتے پوشت پہ درے وہ ہے شتم سے آ لگاتے پشت پہ درے وہ ہے ستم پدر کو غسل و کفن دیتا ہے یتیم پسر تو خون روتا ہے بیٹا پدر کے لاشے جو نیل دروں کے آتے ہیں پشت شے پہ نظر لبوں پہ آتی ہے بے ساختہ فغان جگر لبوں پہ آتی ہے بے ساختہ فغان ارے یہ کیسا زین اردو نے دیا خدا کی پناہ یتیم ہم کو لینے खुदा की पनाह यतीम हमको लईने किया खुदा की पनाह हुए असीरे बला में जो सैयदे सज्जाद।
मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद सल्लल्लाहु
صلوات على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Tonight is the third in this series of 4 majalis in which we commemorate the martyrdom, the shahadat of none other than our 4th holy Imam, Hadrat Ali ibn al-Husayn Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salatu wassalam. Salawat. The sponsors for tonight's majlis are the following families: Mr. Manzar and Mrs. Nina Abbas, Mr. Syed Mehdi and Mrs. Simi Kazmi, as well as Mr. Ehtisham and Mrs. Ifat Naqvi and family. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept all of their a'mal in this holy month of Muharram. We remember their marhumin, your marhumin, and the marhumin of all mu'mineen and mu'minat, including the following marhumin: Syed Tahzibul Hasan Abidi ibn Yaqub Hussain Abidi, Syed Ahmad Hasan Kazmi ibn Akhtar Hussain Hasan Abidi, Kaniz Sabira bint Akhtar Hussain Rizvi, Syed Zafar Hussain Naqvi ibn Syed Ikram Hussain, Sayyida Shahr Banu bint Syed Madhar Hussain, the father and mother of Ehtisham Naqvi, Sayyida Banu bint Syed Zahir al-Hasnain, as well as Kani Zahra, daughter of Maulana Syed Jafar Naqvi. Fatiha. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdinas siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladzina an'amta 'alayhim ghayril maghdubi 'alayhim waladdallin. In this holy month, in this commemoration of our 4th Imam, we also remember those who are in need of dua for their health, safety, and protection in all areas of the world. Please recite with me verse number 62 of Surah An-Naml together 5 times. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Amman yujibul mudtarra idha da'ahu wa yakshifu as-su'. Amman yujibul mudtarra idha da'ahu wa yakshifu as-su'. Amman yujibul mudtarra idha da'ahu wa yakshifu as-su'. أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء ويجعلكم خلفاء الأرض أإله مع الله قليلا ما تذكرون. الصلوات على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Mu'mineen, just a few words about our upcoming programs. Inshallah, tomorrow night will be the conclusion for this series of our 4th Imam. Tomorrow's majlis will be the 34th annual Shab-e-Dari by Anjumane Naujawanane Ali Akbar. It starts with Salatul Maghribain. It's going to be recited by Sayyid Bilal Rizvi, our guest scholar. And there are going to be reciters nationally as well as internationally. Your presence is requested, inshallah. For our next upcoming series, in 2 weeks, we are going to be commemorating the shahadat of Bibi Sakina, salamullahi alayha, salawat please. This is going to be August 25th to August 27th. That's 2 weeks from today. And this is going to be recited by Sayyid Suleiman Abidi. So mark your calendars and we look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks. Further down the line, beginning of September will be Arba'in. Arba'in is going to be recited by Sayyid Hussain Qazwini. And then the 28th of Safar, that program is going to be mid-September. That's going to be recited by Sheikh Fayaz Jafar. Mark your calendars for these and we look forward to seeing you not just in 2 weeks, but in September as well. Finally, mu'mineen, before the majlis, just a few words about our services, since I'm seeing some new faces here. Sadiq School, as we announced yesterday, they are opening a state-of-the-art daycare, and they're also enrolling now for 3rd grade. So if you have kids from ages 2.5 to age 9, and you're looking for a full-time Islamic school, state-of-the-art, with all of the amenities, come talk to me, come talk to Dr. Kharazi, or see me at the desk, or you can visit sadiqschool.com. Jafariya School continues to enroll. It's enrolling pre-K, which is age 4, up to grade 11. Also, by the way, the Sunday school is not just for the students or for the kids. There are free adult classes every Sunday morning with Sheikh Ahmad Amini. So I encourage you all, take advantage. There's no registration. You walk in, we're right here in the hall. Quran for adults, fiqh and questions, whatever your questions are, whatever topics you want to discuss, Sheikh Ahmad Amini is here at your service every Sunday free of charge. Visit jafriyaschool.com for more information. And finally, as I mentioned, you can see me at the desk. We can talk about the schools and our other services. Learn also how to support our services through ACH and donation. Help this masjid so this masjid can help you, insha'Allah ta'ala. Mu'mineen, at this time, I'd like to request our respected guest scholar, Syed Bilal Rizvi, to recite tonight's majlis of our fourth Imam with a nice and loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
You see, this injunction to worship Allah and to engage in His ibadah is something which Allah has emphasized so much that in the Quran, the purpose of our creation has been linked with this act. That Allah, He says, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسِ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. That I have not created the jinn and the human being except that they worship me. This worship has different forms, whether it is the khidmah of the creation of God, whether it is the canonical worship of God, or whether it is to gain ma'rifah or understanding of God. What we understand from this injunction to engage in Allah's ibadah, and what this ayat, it demonstrates that our purpose of creation is linked with His ibadah, that the more a person becomes an abid and a worshipper of God, the more successful that individual is. And in that manner, you find that there are many different stages in that hierarchy of worshiping Allah. But as you go up these stages, you find that there is one stage where an individual, he becomes Zayn al-Abidin. You know, you and I, when we worship, at that moment, we are an abid, we are a worshipper of God. But this is that Imam that he was the adornment of the worshipers. And that's why the subject of analysis tonight is to examine the biography of Imam Zayn al-Abidin, and in particular to examine his biography after the event on the day of Ashura. You know, the title said an in-depth biography of the Imam. But in reality, 1 hour isn't enough for an in-depth biography. And farther than that, an entire lifetime is not enough to get to the depths of this individual, because he is that ocean of virtue which doesn't run out. So now when we come towards the biography of the Imam, because there's people of different age groups, there are those who are younger which are looking for things more simple, there are those who are elder who want a new angle. From the first level, when it comes to the biography of the Imam, we find that the Imam is born on the 5th of Sha'ban in the 38th year after Hijrah. In other words, 2 years of his life are spent during the life of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. And further than that, the Imam is martyred on the 25th of Muharram in the 95th year after Hijrah or the 94th year after Hijrah. What this means is that at the age of his martyrdom, either he was 57 or 56, and that makes the duration of his imamat for a period of 33 or 34 years. You see, when you compare it to many of the other imams of Ahlul Bayt, this duration of imamat is a longer duration. For example, when you look at Imam Hassan al-Askari, Imam al-Askari's duration of imamat begins at the age of 22. And the Imam alayhi salam is martyred at the age of 28. So you find over there is 6 years. But over here, when it comes to Imam Zayn al-Abidin, the Imam has 33 or 34 years. So the question that we need to ask is that if the Imam lives 33 or 34 years after Karbala, what did the Imam accomplish and what was his legacy within this time period? So when you go and you look at the Imam from the first level, we find this. The second level, of course, the father of the Imam, Imam al-Hussein, as everyone knows. There's an interesting tradition which is found that one day when Imam Zayn al-Abidin is young, it's stated that Imam Zayn al-Abidin becomes ill. And Imam al-Hussein says to Imam Zayn al-Abidin that, should I bring somebody to help you? You know what the Imam replies? The Imam replies that Allah will help me. Imam al-Hussein, when he looks at Imam al-Sajjad, he says, in this regard, you are like the Prophet Ibrahim. Because when the Prophet Ibrahim was thrown in the fire and Jibreel comes and he says, "Oh Ibrahim, can I offer you any help?" What did Ibrahim reply? Ibrahim replied by saying that Allah is the one who will help me. And in this regard, you find this narration says Imam al-Hussein gives this likeness to Imam al-Sajjad in this scenario. So you find the father of Imam al-Sajjad, Imam al-Hussein. But the mother of Imam al-Sajjad, according to our narrations, was a lady by the name of Shah Zanan. And what the narrations mention is that she was the daughter of Yazdegerd III or Yazdejurd, who was the last Sassanid Persian king of that time period. It's stated that when this conquest happens over there, and she is brought to the Muslim lands, one of her sisters marries Muhammad bin Abi Bakr, and you find Imam al-Hussein marries Shah Zanan. It's stated that one day when she is brought initially, Amir al-Mu'mineen is present, and then there are other individuals who are present as well. And when those other individuals, they approach her, she replies by saying that may their faces be darkened. At that moment, that individual became very upset, thinking that she is speaking about him. But in reality, she was speaking about those disbelievers and those individuals who didn't believe in Islam from where she is from. So at that moment, Amir al-Mu'mineen steps up and he defends her from this individual. And later on, you find that Amir al-Mu'mineen would say to Sayyid al-Shuhada that look after this lady. And in that manner, she gives birth to Imam Zayn al-Abidin. But she passes away shortly after giving birth to the Imam. So you find this was a brief biographical sketch in terms of his background and the timeline. But now when you look at the life of the Imam, you find that the life of the Imam is a misdaq and a referent of the verse of the Quran, chapter 32, verse 24. Within that verse, Allah, He says, وَجَعَلْنَا مِنْهُمْ آئِمَّةً يَهْدُونَ بِأَمْرِنَا لَمَّا صَبَرُوا وَكَانُوا بِآيَاتِنَا يُقِنُونَ. Over here in this ayat, Allah, He does something interesting. He mentions that we are making them imams and leaders. But this is the only ayat in the Quran where Allah mentions the criteria for making somebody an imam. There are other verses which tell the qualities of an imam. But over here, Allah is saying that we have made them imams who guide by our command, and then we have made them this. Why? Because they are patient and because they are certain in our signs. So over here we find three elements. The first element is that an imam guides by the command of Allah, guidance and hidayah. Number two, an imam has sabr and patience. Number three, an imam has yaqeen and certainty. You see, these three elements, they manifest in the life of Imam Zayn al-Abidin in three particular areas. The certainty of Imam Zayn al-Abidin manifests in the ibadat and the worship of Imam Zayn al-Abidin. The patience of Imam Zayn al-Abidin manifests in him propagating the message of his father after the day of Ashura. And you find the hidayat that the Imam gives manifests in his teachings and his du'as. You see, when we come to the third element, which says that an imam is somebody who is certain, what do I mean when I say that certainty manifests in the worship of the imam? There is an ayat of the Quran in chapter 15, verse 99. It says, وَعْبُدْ رَبَّكَ حَتَّى يَأْتِيَكَ الْيَقِينَ. That worship your Lord until certainty comes to you or until death comes to you. Many mufassirin, they interpreted yaqeen as death over here, but you find that it could be certainty in general. One of the reasons death is called yaqeen is at the moment of death, you find everybody is certain. The wrongdoer is certain that he had disbelieved and he was wrong for that disbelief, and the believer is certain that he was upon the right path. But what this ayat is demonstrating is that the perfection of one's ubudiyah is related towards their certainty. And on the vice versa, certainty is related to perfection and ubudiyah. You know, when Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, when the Imam says, لو كشف لي الغطاء ما ازددت يقينا, that if the veils were removed from the eyes of Ali ibn Abi Talib and it would not increase me in certainty, The Imam, when he says this is demonstrating the status of the ibadah of Amir al-Mu'mineen. This is that same Imam who says that I do not worship a Lord that I don't see. So they say to the Imam, what do you mean that you worship a Lord that you can't see? He says, it is not by these physical eyes that I see Him, but it is by my heart that I am able to see Allah. So in that sense, you find that ibadah has an immense link, that the more yaqeen somebody has, the stronger their ibadah and their worship becomes at that moment. So in this sense, you find that certainty is manifested in the ibadah of the Imam. You know, it's stated that one day an individual, he comes to Imam Muhammad al-Baqir salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. And when he comes to Imam Muhammad al-Baqir, he says that I saw your father in salat. And when I saw your father in salat, he was absolutely still, but the clothes were moving upon his body. Imagine that a person is standing so straight that the only thing moving are his clothes. At that moment, Imam al-Baqir says that the reason my father is able to stand like this is because he recognizes whom he is standing in front of. So you find this goes to show that reality. No, there is another tradition which says that one day Imam Zayn al-Abidin is within his home. And as Imam Zayn al-Abidin is within his home, he is in the state of sajda and prostration. A group of individuals, they come to the house of the Imam and they tell the wife of Imam Zayn al-Abidin that your son Muhammad al-Baqir has fallen into a well. At that moment, you find the wife of the Imam, she goes to the Imam and she says to him that your son has fallen into a well. The Imam continues the sajda. After the Imam finishes that state of prostration, she says to the Imam that you continued your prostration even in this situation. The Imam says that I did not have any shortcomings in my affair with Allah. So Allah will take care of my affairs. When the Imam, he goes to the tent, the narration, it's when he goes towards that well, the narration, it says that Imam al-Baqir was on top of the water and they bring Imam al-Baqir out of that well. You know, these narrations which present the mu'jizat, the karamat of the Imam, this doesn't mean that the Imam left and right was showing miracles at every moment, even though the Imam has the ikhtiyar, the ability to do so. But whenever there was a danger to the message of Allah, you find the Imam would demonstrate them. And these narrations which are found in our sources, they have that value over there. So you find Imam Zayn al-Abidin on one level, he is showing his ibadah. But at the second level, you find that ibadah is also to serve the creation of Allah and to present yourself in a manner which is appropriate as well. You know, unfortunately, sometimes when we paint the picture of Imam Zayn al-Abidin, we unfortunately, not on purpose, paint a picture of a weak individual. You know, for example, the most common title from those who are background is from the subcontinent is that we say Bimar Imam. Without a doubt, on the day of Ashura, the Imam was ill. And without a doubt, this statement is very powerful in Masaib. But this is not a defining feature of the Imam. This is not a title which is found in the Hadith. In the Hadith, we find Zayn al-Abidin, we find Sayyid al-Sajjadin, we find Dul Tafanat. We find many titles, but Bimar Imam is not a title which is found in the Hadith. So you find oftentimes we paint this picture of Imam Zayn al-Abidin. But in reality, when you look at it, jihad and to struggle in the way of Allah is of different types. It is not just to pick up the sword. Sometimes you do jihad with your actions, with your character. You know, one day an individual comes to the Imam. He asks the Imam for water, the Imam gives him water. Later after that, a group of individuals, they come, they say that, "Oh Ali ibn al-Hussein, did you not know who that man was that you gave water?" You know who that individual was? That individual was Hussein ibn Numayr or Hasin ibn Numayr. In other words, one of the people who was involved in the killing of Hazrat Ali Akbar alayhi salam, that this is a form of jihad that the Imam is doing over there. But no, another form that even though the Imam didn't fight with the sword, you find another form of jihad is what? It is jihad with your tongue. You know, there is a famous saying in the Arabic language that kalimatul haq in the sultan al-ja'ir, that one of the most powerful things an individual can do in the path of propagating good is that they speak truth in front of an oppressive leader. And you find this is something that Imam Zayn al-Abidin began to demonstrate immediately. You know, after the event on the day of Ashura, and the caravan of Ahlul Bayt, it reaches Kufa, Imam Zayn al-Abidin and the rest of Ahlul Bayt, they go into the court of Ibn Ziyad. And when they go into the court of Ibn Ziyad, you find that Ibn Ziyad is given a fahrist of all of those who were killed. And as he's looking, he says to Imam Zayn al-Abidin, who are you? He says that I am Ali ibn al-Hussein. He says that alaysa Allahu qatala Ali ibn al-Hussein? Look at the wording that he uses. He says that did Allah not kill Ali ibn al-Hussein? You know what the Imam replies? He says, qatalahun nas. It is not Allah who killed him, but rather the people they killed him. My brother Ali Akbar he's referring to. No, then after that Ibn Ziyad says, bal. No, rather qatalahullah, but rather it was Allah who killed him. So you find Imam Zayn al-Abidin in front of this individual, the way he is speaking is demonstrating the courage of Imam Zayn al-Abidin. And then after that, you find that the Imam, he says to him, that Ibn Ziyad, he orders that now if you're going to speak to me in this manner, that I will order for him to be killed, Imam Zayn al-Abidin. The Imam says, Abil qatal tuhaddiduni, that are you threatening me with death? Innal qatla lana aada, that to be killed is something which is our habit. It is normal for us Ahlul Bayt. And our honor from Allah is ash-shahada and martyrdom. And eventually you find that Sayyida Zainab steps in to defend Imam Zayn al-Abidin. But what this goes to show is that the moment the day of Ashura happened, even a few days after the day of Ashura, one function that Imam Zayn al-Abidin served was to propagate the message of his father and to make the ummah conscious of who his father was. You know, it's stated that when they enter Sham, there was an individual who comes and he says that may Allah be praised for conquering you individuals. The Imam looks at that man and he says, Ya Shaykh, hal qara'ta al-Quran? That, oh Shaykh, oh elderly individual, have you ever read the Quran? The man says, yes, I've read the Quran. The Imam says, have you read the verse, قُلْ لَا أَسْأَلُكُمْ عَلَيْهِ أَجْرًا إِلَّا الْمَوَدَّةَ فِي الْقُرْبَةِ? That have you read the verse that I ask for nothing except love for my family? The man says, yes, I've read the verse. The Imam says, نَحْنُ الْقُرْبَةِ, we are that family. Then after that, the Imam says, have you read the verse, وَآتِ دَا الْقُرْبَ حَقَّهُ, that give the right to your kinfolks? The man says, yes, I've read the verse. The Imam says, نَحْنُ الْقُرْبَ. After that, the verse of Qums, which says to give it to Allah, the Prophet, and the Ahlul Bayt. You find that man says, yes, I've read the verse. Then after that, the Imam, he recites the fourth ayat. He says, have you read the verse of the Quran? إِنَّمَا يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ لِيُذْهِبَ عَنْكُمُ الرِّجْسَ أَهْلَ الْبَيْتِ وَيُطَهِّرَكُمْ تَطْهِيرًا. The man says, yes, I've read the verse. So you find the Imam once again, he is making people aware of who their reality is. Finally, after that, you find the third example of the Imam doing jihad with his tongue is when they enter the court of Sham. You know, when they enter the court of Sham, anyone who is given a sermon knows that when your body is weak or you're ill or you're fatigued, it's not easy to give a sermon. A person, their mind isn't sharp. They're more prone to mistakes. But this is an Imam of Ahlul Bayt. When he enters that courtyard, the situation is such that the court is full. You find that in front of him are the heads of the Shuhada. The head of his father is placed in front of Yazid. Yazid takes a stick and he begins to poke the teeth of Abu Abdullah. He sees that his aunts are distressed over there. In that situation, to give a sermon demonstrates the strength of Imam Zayn al-Abidin. But you know, even before that sermon, the Imam, he demonstrates what his courage is. You know, it's stated that Sayyida Zainab, she gives his khutbah. After that, there was an individual who was giving a sermon. And in that sermon, he begins to praise Yazid and Muawiyah. After he gives that sermon, Imam Zayn al-Abidin says, Waylak, that woe be upon you. Ishtarayta ridal makhluk bi sukhtil khaliq. That you have purchased the pleasure of the creation at the cost of the anger of Allah. And then after that he says that, Ya Yazid, that do you give me permission that as'ad hadihil a'wad, that do you give me permission to climb the structure made out of wood? The Imam doesn't call it a mimbar, because a mimbar is that what Rasulullah would sit upon. In other words, the Imam is demonstrating that if haqq is not spoken, if the praise and the fadail of Ahlul Bayt is not spoken, then in reality that spot does not become a mimbar. In reality, it remains a structure of wood, and over there the Imam, he gives this famous sermon where he says, Anabnu Makkah wa Mina, Anabnu Zamzam wa Safa, and he goes through the fadail of Rasulullah, Amir al-Mu'mineen, and then he goes through the masaib of Imam al-Hussein by introducing himself as the son of the Imam. So you find over here, this is one aspect of the biography of the Imam, and this strength only comes through a certainty in God. But now the second element. The verse, it said that an Imam is the one who has patience. You see, the patience of Imam Zayn al-Abidin was demonstrated in him propagating the masayib of his father. You see, on one level it's stated that when the Imam passes by a butcher, he says that, did you give this animal water? Did you give food to this animal? Did you sharpen the sword? And when the butcher says that we are Muslim, we do all of these things, he says, my father was killed thirsty. And my father wasn't given food. And they didn't sharpen the sword of my father. A man comes to Medina. He says, Ana al-Gharib, that I am alone over here. The Imam says, oh man, if you were to die today, would they put a kafan upon your body? Would they bury you? The man says, yes. The Imam replies, then do not say that you are gharib. If anyone was gharib, my father Hussein was gharib. So you find these narrations imply that at times the Imam would remind people in this manner. Now at one level, without a doubt, the shiddat of Karbala remained with Imam Zayn al-Abidin. But at the second level, there was a higher dimension to this. The higher dimension is that mourning and azah was seen as amongst the most powerful vehicles of propagating Imam al-Hussein's message. You know, if you're in this room today and you see a child smiling and playing, you don't say to that child, why are you smiling? Why are you playing? This is a normal condition. But if you see somebody crying, you say to that child, why are you crying? And in that manner, when it comes to azah and these tears, you find naturally people would inquire about what happened on the day of Ashura. You see, this mourning ceremonies, they went through development, through the time of Imam Zayn al-Abidin, then Imam al-Baqir, then Imam al-Sadiq. But you find that in the time of Imam Zayn al-Abidin, we have narrations that, for example, the women of Banu Hashim, they would gather, and Imam Zayn al-Abidin would pass food at those gatherings, that they would wear black over there. There would be some poetic recitations, and then later these poetic recitations would take different forms in the time of Imam al-Baqir and Imam al-Sadiq. But what this goes to show is that Imam Zayn al-Abidin is demonstrating that do not think that I am simply weak-hearted when I cry. Yes, on one level the shiddat of Karbala is there, but at the second level, in the wisdom of Imamat, was to spread the message of Imam al-Hussein. So you find this is the second level. The third level of the ayat is that an Imam gives guidance by the will of Allah. You know, there's a famous narration which is found in Al-Kafi. And this hadith is called Hadithul Wasiya or Hadithul Law. And it's stated that when Rasulullah passes away, Jibreel brings a tablet, and within that was a wasiyah for Rasulullah, which he gave to Amir al-Mu'mineen. Then Amir al-Mu'mineen would open the next seal, give it to Imam Hassan, then to Imam Hussein, then to Imam Zayn al-Abidin. And in this narration, it is stated on the will for Imam al-Sajjad from Imam Hussein is that to propagate via silence. You know, I ask you, how many sermons do we have from Imam Zayn al-Abidin? Even though we don't have sermons like Imam Ali alayhi salam in that quantity or Imam al-Sadiq, what we have is the guidance the Imam gave via his du'as. You see, the du'as in as-Sahifat al-Sajjadiyah, they gave a dilemma for the government of that time. The government of that time, the Umayyads, they said they were Muslims. Now they can watch the Imam, they can prevent him from speaking, but can you as a Muslim prevent somebody from reciting dua? If they prevented him from reciting dua, you find that there would be backfire upon them. So what would the Imam do? The Imam would gather, the Imam would recite dua, but in each of these duas, an entire lesson in Islamic thought would be there. Anyone who wanted to know Tawheed can see the first dua of as-Sahifatu Sajjadiyah. And if anyone wants to know the role of the Malaika, they can go to the third dua of Sahifatu Sajjadiyah. If anyone wants to know the character of Rasulullah, they can go to dua Makarimul Akhlaq. If anyone wants to know how to deal with hardships, they can go to the dua Ya man tuhallu bihi aqdul makarih. So you find all of these different du'as, they would be a complete teaching in Islamic thought. You know, as-Sahifatu Sajjadiyah is a book which we revere. Nahjul Balagha is a book which we revere as well. But you want to know what the difference between Sahifatu Sajjadiyah and Nahjul Balagha is? Nahjul Balagha was compiled by a great alim, Sayyidur Radi. But as-Sahifatu Sajjadiyah was compiled by Imam Zayn al-Abidin himself. That Imam Zayn al-Abidin on one side, he would dictate the Sahifa to Imam Muhammad al-Baqir. And on the other side, he would dictate it to Zayd al-Shahid. You know, the Zaydis, they have their own asnad and sanad for as-Sahifatu Sajjadiyah. And there was a marhum scholar in America by the name of Syed Jalali who did a full research on the Zaydi asnad to as-Sahifatu Sajjadiyah. But when you look at it, the Imam on one side, he tells Imam al-Baqir gives those du'as to Imam al-Sadiq. On the other side, he gives it to Zayd, Zayd gives it to his son Yahya. And then there is one common narrator between both sides, the Zaydi side and the Twelver side. And that common narrator is Mutawakkil ibn Harun. You know, this hadith, which I'm about to quote, it is found in most of the introductions of as-Sahifatu Sajjadiyah. Of course, in the English language, the most famous translation is by William Chittick. And in Urdu, the most famous translation is by Mufti Ja'far Hussain. You know, the narrator, Mutawakkil ibn Harun, he says that I met Yahya ibn Zayd. And Yahya ibn Zayd was going to Khurasan. When I met Yahya ibn Zayd, he said to me that, where are you coming from? I said that I'm coming from Medina. He said that, did you meet my cousin Ja'far al-Sadiq in Medina? He says, yes, I met your cousin. And your cousin told me about your affair. Yahya says, then why don't you tell me? He says, no, it will be difficult for you. Yahya says, no, I can handle it using my own words. Mutawakkil ibn Harun said that Ja'far al-Sadiq said that you will die. You know, Yahya ibn Zayd, he had an uprising against the government and he was killed. So after that, you find the conversation, it continues. Yahya says that, do you know what is the difference between me and Ja'far al-Sadiq? He says that everything that I know, he knows. But everything that he knows, I do not know. And the reason people are inclined to them, this is his own thinking, is because we invite to death and they invite to life. But you find after that, it's stated that Mutawakkil ibn Harun says that I received a dua from Ja'far al-Sadiq. And Yahya then tells about the version of his father, and he gives the sahifa of his father to Mutawakkil ibn Harun, and he says, go and give them to the grandchildren of Hassan al-Mutanna, but before giving them, show it to Ja'far al-Sadiq. So you find that Mutawakkil ibn Harun takes that copy to Imam al-Sadiq. Now, Imam al-Sadiq has the copy of Zayd in front of him. So what Imam al-Sadiq does is that he says to his son Ismail, go and bring me the copy of my father. When Ismail brings the copy of Imam al-Baqir, Imam al-Sadiq kisses that copy, he compares them, and he says that both of them are the same, according to this narration. And then after that, he says something interesting. He says to Mutawakkil ibn Harun that keep these du'as concealed, that we do not want them to go into the wrong hands. You see, this is that power within Sahifatul Sajjadiyah. You know, Sayyid al-Burjardi would say that mu'jizat manifest in a Sahifatul Sajjadiyah. And Muhammad Taqi Majlisi would say that even though we have the asnad, even if there were no chains in a Sahifatul Sajjadiyah, the content is enough to show that it is the words of the Imam alayhi salam. But now I'll give you one more example. You know, it's stated that Ayatollah Marashi Najafi, he sent a copy of a Sahifatul Sajjadiyah to a sheikh at Al-Azhar by the name of Jawhari al-Tantawi. Al-Tantawi was a famous mufassir of the Quran, and he was a very, very famous scholar at Al-Azhar. You know, when Tantawi, he receives this copy of a Sahifatul Sajjadiyah, he says, I received that book from Zayn al-Abidin, the one with Sayyid al-Sajidin. And then after that, he says, Min ash-shaqa, lam naqif ala hadha al-athar al-qayyim al-khalid, la min mawarith al-nabuwa, wa la min turati ahlul bayt. That he says, it is from our misery that we have never seen anything like this, neither within the relics of the prophets or the legacy of Ahlul Bayt. And then after that he says, فَكُلَّمَا تَأَمَّلْتُهَا وَجَدْتُهَا فَوْقَ كَلَامِ الْبَشَرِ وَتَحْتَ كَلَامِ الْخَالِقِ. He says, every time I reflect on this book, I find that it is less than the words of Allah, but greater than the words of the creation of Allah. You see, this is that book which was called the Injil of Ali Muhammad. This is that book which was called the Zabur of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. No, this is that book which was called Ukhtul Quran. You know, it was called the sister of the Quran. You know, naturally people may say, why sister, why not brother? It is because Sahifa is mu'annat and feminine in Arabic. And because of that, you find it is Ukhtul Quran. Why? Because the Quran comes from wahi and revelation. This comes from ilham and inspiration. No, at the second level, the spirit and the message of the Quran is explained through the words of Imam Zayn al-Abidin. So you find all of these realities are contained within the dua of the Imam. So in that manner, the Imam, he gives guidance. But no, there was another method which the Imam would give guidance before I come towards musibah. That method is that the Imam in his time, he would train many individuals who were slaves and then he would free them into society. You know, one of the biggest crises in America is that after the Civil War, you find that there was no system for these people who were freed. Imagine a massive population is free. There was no system for them to be introduced into society. So you find that for something like that to happen, there needs to be training over there. You know, one day it's stated that one of the servants of Imam Zayn al-Abidin, she had an ibrik, she had a water canister with her. And as she is going to give water, that water canister, one narration says that the water pours on the Imam, the other it says that it hits the Imam and it cuts the Imam. Over there in that time period, if you have a non-Arab slave, for them to do that to your master, it's not good news. But now this happens to Imam Zayn al-Abidin. The Imam would train those in their house to recite the Quran. The moment this happens, she recites وَالْكَاذِمِينَ الْغَيْظِ, that the believers are those who suppress their anger. The Imam says, I suppressed my anger. وَالْعَافِينَ عَنِ النَّاسِ, and you find that they are those individuals who are lenient towards the people. The Imam says, you are forgiven. And then after that, you find that the Imam, he says that you are free in the way of Allah. So you find that this is one example. Another example is that it's one day it's stated that there was a drought in Medina. And as there was a drought in Medina, people, they went and they did Salatul Istisqa. Salatul Istisqa is a prayer for rain. As they're doing Salatul Istisqa, they're praying the rain doesn't come down. One man, the narrator says, that I noticed that there was a servant who came into the gathering, he raised his hands, made dua, and the rain, it begins to fall. It stated after that, I wanted to go and find out who this individual was. And as I followed this individual through Medina, I end up at the house of Imam Zayn al-Abidin. When I go to the house of Imam Zayn al-Abidin, I say to the Imam that I want to purchase one of your slaves. The Imam brings out several different slaves. When he brings them out, the man says, no, the one I want isn't here. Then the Imam calls him to come out. That individual comes out, the man says, I want to purchase you. You know what the narration says? He says that, oh Allah, I had made a dua that as long as I am alive, I want to spend my life in the house of Zayn al-Abidin. And at that moment, he passes away. You see, why were there servants in the house of Ahlul Bayt? These were individuals who were honored to be in the house of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. That many of them, they were not there by force anymore. You know, there's a famous story of Qambar, that as Qambar is going with Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, there was a person who comes and asks the Imam for some food. The Imam says, Qambar, go and give them the food. Qambar, he's looking confused. He says the food is in one of the horses. The Imam says, then go and give the entire horse. The Qambar says that the problem is, I don't know which horse within the caravan it is. You know what the Imam says? The Imam says, give the entire caravan to that individual. At that moment, Qambar, he jumps away. The Imam says, oh Qambar, why did you jump away? Qambar says that, oh my master, I was afraid that you would even give me away. Qambar, the Imam says, oh Qambar, what would be wrong with that? Qambar says that you can find 1,000 servants like me, but I can't find one master like you, Ali ibn Abi Talib. So you find that Ahlul Bayt, through their rahmah, when they would train these individuals, they would have a special bond with Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. And that's why Imam Zayn al-Abidin, when he gave his famous sermon in the court of Sham, one of the things which the Imam says, that أُعْطِينَا سِتًّا وَفُضِّلْنَا بِالسَّعْبِ, that Allah has given us 6 and He has honored us with 7. And amongst one of the honors is that He says that Allah has placed the love of us Ahlul Bayt in the hearts of the believers. You see, as Imam Zayn al-Abidin is giving this sermon, Yazid realizes that the tides of the court have changed. And now the only way to stop him is to call the adhan. The muaddin says, Allahu Akbar. The imam says that there is none greater than Allah. After that, the muaddin says, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. The imam says, my flesh and my hair and my blood and all of this testifies that there is no God but Allah. But then that moment it comes in the court of Sham where it says, Ashhadu anna Muhammadar Rasulullah. The moment he says, Ashhadu anna Muhammadar Rasulullah, the Imam, he turns to Yazid and he says, oh Yazid, was Muhammad my grandfather or was he your grandfather? If you say that he is your grandfather, then you have lied. But if you say that he is my grandfather, then why have you taken us as captives? You see, one individual, they said to the Imam that have you won or have you lost after Karbala? The Imam said, the moment you hear Ashhadu anna Muhammadar Rasulullah in the adhan, then at that moment know that we have won. You see, this is that Imam. 33 or 34 years after Karbala, he spends mourning for his father. That one day water is placed in front of Imam Zayn al-Abidin. The Imam, he begins to cry and he says, Qutila abi atshana. That when they killed my father was thirsty when they killed him. That what is the musibah of Imam Zayn al-Abidin? You know, one of the greatest masaib of the Imam, without a doubt, was the day of Ashura. And on the day of Ashura, Imam al-Hussein came to the tent of Imam Zayn al-Abidin for one final time. When Imam Zayn al-Abidin saw his father, he looks at his father and he says, Aina ammi al-Abbas. That he says, oh father, where is my uncle Abbas? The Imam says, Qad qutila, your uncle has been killed. After that, Imam al-Sajjad says, Aina akhi Aliyun al-Akbar, that where is my brother Ali Akbar? The Imam says, Qad qutila, that oh Sajjad, Akbar has been killed. Then he says, oh Sajjad, it is only you and I who are left from amongst the men, O Zayn al-Abidin. But then after that, the Imam, he says, Shi'ati, that O Sajjad, tell my Shia that Mahama sharibtum adba ma'in fadkuruni, O sami'tum bishayidin O gharibin fandubuni, that O my Shia, whenever you drink cold water, remember me. Whenever you hear the news of a gharib, remember me. And then he says, Laytakum fi yawmi ashura jami'an tanduruni. He says, I wish all of you were there on the day of Ashura and you saw how I was asking water for my infant, but they refused to give me water. You see, as the day of Ashura, it continued. A point it came where the Imam, he says to Sayyida Zainab that, oh my aunt, bring me a sword and bring me a stick. Sayyida Zainab says, oh Sajjad, why do you want the sword and why do you want the stick? The Imam says that I want the sword to defend my father. But why do you want the asa? The Imam says it's because I can't stand without it. You find that moment it remains with the Imam. But then a point it comes in the life of Imam Zayn al-Abidin where they give poison to Imam Zayn al-Abidin. You know, when Imam Zayn al-Abidin was within his final moments, it stated that Imam al-Baqir, he comes and he greets his father. He sits on the chest of his father. You know where I'm going with this masahib. At that moment, Imam Zayn al-Abidin begins to cry. Imam al-Baqir says, Baba, oh father, why are you crying? The Imam says, oh my son, in my final moments, you are upon my chest. But in the plains of Karbala, on the day of Ashura, وَالشَّمَرْ جَالِسٌ عَلَى صَدْرِ الْحُسَيْنِ. Over there, when my father was on the ground, it was Shemar was on the chest of my father. You know, Imam Zayn al-Abidin passes away. It's stated that as Imam al-Baqir is giving ghusl to Imam Zayn al-Abidin, he notices that there are marks on the back of Imam Zayn al-Abidin. That in the middle of the night, the Imam, he would go, he would give food. Imam al-Baqir, he puts the kafan on the body of his father. He buries his father. But I say, oh Imam Zayn al-Abidin, your burial wasn't like the burial of your father in Karbala. That on the 13th of Muharram, when Imam Zayn al-Abidin reaches the land of Karbala, he sees that the bodies are scattered all over the plains of Karbala. The tribe of Banu Asad is standing at that moment. Imam Zayn al-Abidin says, oh Banu Asad, make one grave for the companions. They begin to bury the companions. After that, they say to Imam Zayn al-Abidin that, O captive, there is one body by the Furat. When we pick one side of the body, the other side it breaks and falls to the ground. And when we pick the other side of that body, the Imam says, that is the body of my Chacha Abbas, I will bury that body. Then after that it is stated, the Imam places a piece of cloth on the ground. Why does he place that cloth? He places it to gather the pieces of his father. He begins to bury his father. As he's burying his father, one narration it says, a voice it comes from the cut body of the Imam. That voice it said, Tifli, Tifli. Then where is my infant? The Imam says, Banu Asad, bring the body of the 6-month infant. He places Ali Asghar on the chest of the Imam, Ali Akbar by the feet of the Imam. He closes the grave. He says, هذا قبر أبي عبد الله الذي قتل غريب وجه على لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين. Ya Allah, we ask through the right of Ahlul Bayt, wherever the followers of Ahlul Bayt are in difficulty, help them. Wherever they're sick and ailing, cure them. Ya Allah, allow us to walk in the footsteps of Ahlul Bayt, to benefit from the teachings of Ahlul Bayt. Ya Allah, grant us the ziyarah of Ahlul Bayt, grant us the shafa'a of Ahlul Bayt, and allow us to see the return of the 12th of Ahlul Bayt, Matam Hussein.
Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein.
گستاخوں کے ہجوم میں، گستاخوں کے ہجوم میں زین کے درمیان علامہ 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 گستاخوں کے ہجوم میں، گستاخوں کے ہجوم میں زین کے درمیان علامہ 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 گئے حیران ہوں بازار سے کیسے گزر گئے، تطہیر کے پلے تھے، تطہیر کے پلے تھے بازار کا سامان علامہ 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 یہ سوچ کے سجاد کا دل خون رو پڑا، یہ سوچ کے سجاد کا دل خون رو پڑا، تفسیر بیردا تھے، تفسیر بیردا تھے، نیزے پہ تھا قرآن، علامہ 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 کیسے اٹھائے لاش کو مظلوم چل دیے، کیسے اٹھائے لاش کو مظلوم چل دیے، شبیر کے زئے پہ، شبیر کے زئے پہ اکبر سا نوجوان، علامہ 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 علامہ، کیوں بار بار لیتے ہو تم نام بلویام میں، کیوں بار بار لیتے ہو تم نام بلویام میں، مر جائے گی بازار میں، مر جائے گی بازار میں، آئے آج میری ماں، علامہ 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 یثرب سے جو امیر چلا تھا عاشور کو، یثرب سے جو امیر چلا تھا عاشور کو، کربل میں جو لٹا ہے، کربل میں جو لٹا ہے رسالت کا کارواں، علامہ 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 علامہ، گستاخوں کے ہجوم میں، گستاخوں کے ہجوم میں زینا کی درمیان، علامہ علامہ حسین
دیے تھے جتنے فضائل خدا نے زینب کو، 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 دیے تھے جتنے فضائل خدا نے زینب کو۔ دیے تھے جتنے فضائل خدا نے زینب کو، 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 نے اتنے درد دیے، نے اتنے درد دیے کربلا میں زینب کو، دیے تھے جتنے فضائل خدا نے زینب کو، نے اتنے درد دیے، نے اتنے درد دیے کربلا میں زینب کو، دیے تھے جتنے فضائل خدا نے زینب کو، جہاں بھی نیزے پہ ٹھہرا کہیں سرے عباس، جہاں بھی نیزے پہ ٹھہرا کہیں سرے عباس، وہیں لگائے گئے، وہیں لگائے گئے تازیان زینب کو دیے تھے جتنے فضائل خدا نے زینب کو. جہاں بھی نیزے پہ ٹھہرا کہیں سرے عباس، جہاں بھی نیزے پہ ٹھہرا کہیں سرے عباس، وہیں لگائے گئے وہیں لگائے گئے تازیان زینب کو دیے تھے جتنے فضائل خدا نے زینب کو. میں اتنے درد دیے میں اتنے درد دیے کربلا میں زینب کو دیے تھے جتنے فضائل خدا نے زینب کو. پھر سے علی کی بیٹی رداؤں کا درد بھول گئی، علی کی بیٹی رداؤں کا درد بھول گئی، پکارا نام سے جب پکارا نام سے جب اشکیان زینب کو دیے تھے جتنے فضائل خدا نے زینب کو. علی کی بیٹی رداؤں کا درد بھول گئی، علی کی بیٹی رداؤں کا درد بھول گئی، پکارا نام سے جب پکارا نام سے جب اشکیان زینب کو دیے تھے جتنے فضائل خدا نے زینب کو. علی بچاتے بچاتے جہاں بطول رکی، علی بچاتے بچاتے جہاں بطول رکی، یہ فرض سونپ دیا یہ فرض سونپ دیا فاطمہ نے زینب کو دیے تھے جتنے فضائل خدا نے زینب کو. میں اتنے درد دیے میں اتنے درد دیے کربلا میں زینب کو دیے تھے جتنے فضائل خدا نے زینب کو. علی بچاتے بچاتے جہاں بطول رکی، علی بچاتے بچاتے جہاں بطول رکی، یہ فرض سونپ دیا، یہ فرض سونپ دیا فاطمہ نے زینب کو، دیے تھے جتنے فضائل خدا نے زینب کو۔ آخری جہاں بھی نیزے پہ ٹھہرا کہیں سرے عباس، جہاں بھی نیزے پہ ٹھہرا کہیں سرے عباس، وہیں لگائے گئے وہیں لگائے گئے تازیان زینب کو، یہ تھے جتنے فضائل خدا نے زینب کو۔
بوقت عصر یہ گونجی تھی کربلا میں صدا، نبی کے پیار کا مقتل میں کٹ گیا ہے گلا، ہوا یہ مقتل میں شور برپا، حسین پیاسے کو رن میں مارا، حسین بدن سے سرور کا سر اتارا، حسین ہے کربلا کا عجیب منظر، ہے خون آلود جسم سرور، لہو میں تر ہے لباس سارا، حسین پیاس قرآن میں مارا، حسین پیاس قرآن میں مارا، ہوا مقتل میں شور برپا، حسین پیاس قرآن میں مارا، حسین پیاس باپا ہے مقتل میں اب قیامت، پڑی ہے سرور پہ ہر مصیبت، بدن پہ نیزہ کسی نے مارا، حسین پیاس قرآن میں مارا، قرآن میں مارا، ہوا مقتل میں شور برپا، حسین پیاس قرآن میں مارا، حسین پیاس قرآن میں مارا، نہ اب سپاہی نہ اب ہے لشکر، نہ اب ہے قاسم نہ اب ہے اکبر، مدد کو آؤ کوئی خدا را حسین پیاسے قرآن میں مارا حسین پیاسے قرآن میں مارا ہوا مقتل میں شور برپا حسین پیاسے قرآن حسین حسین مظلوم و خستہ تن کا پڑا ہوا ہے زمین پہ لاشا ہے جسم شبیر پارا پارا حسین پیاسے قرآن میں مارا حسین مارا ہوا یہ مقتل میں شور برپا حسین پیاسے قرآن میں مارا ہے دل گرفتہ غریب مادر حسین پیاسا ہے زیر خنجر برید سر ہے نبی کا پیارا حسین پیاسے قرآن میں مارا حسین پیاسے قرآن میں مارا حسین پیاسے قرآن میں مارا یا حسین
جزاک اللہ اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم السلام علیکہ یا ابا عبداللہ السلام علیکہ یا ابن رسول اللہ السلام علیکم ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ السلام علیکہ یا غریب الغرباء السلام علیکہ یا معین الضعفاء والفقراء السلام علیکہ یا شمس الشموس السلام علیکہ انیس النفوس ایوہ المدفون بعرض توز روحی و جسمی لک الفدا السلام علیکم ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ السلام علیکہ یا صاحب العصر والزمان الأمان الأمان الأمان. السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن. السلام عليك إمام هذا. عجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل مخرجك وظهورك وجعلنا من أنصارك وأبانك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
just leave right there. Thanks.